Okay, so this was forwarded to me by Ce-Nex. It's 2 interviews, and we rarely, at least nowadays, get too much information directly. Sometimes you have to kind of like hunt it, or like kind of see what they say at certain places or certain events, at least in regards to the big direction kind of perspective of the game. And I guess the Elder Scrolls Online studio director, ZOS studio director, Matt Fuhrer, talks a little bit about why, I guess, where ESO is going. I don't know, I haven't read this yet, so I'll read it with you guys. And the second interview is with Michael Zink, who is the new Loremaster, because Lehman Total, who was the successor to, Lauren Schwick, was the Loremaster before him. So yeah, we'll get to see some perspectives here. And I guess Matt Fuhrer, let's see, he's been with ZOS for 15 years, directing ESO from the beginning. Let's see. We're very aware that we are carrying that torch right now for Elder Scrolls, and we want to make sure everything we do is in line with that. And this is why, they often have to consult, Todd Howard and other Bethesda people about lore, where to go, what zones they could show. But that's why they don't show Akavir. That's why they don't really show Dwemer much. They don't really show like other things that have not really been explored too much in other Elder Scrolls games. But at the same time, they have done a lot of extensive exploring with things that we haven't ever seen before in previous Elder Scrolls games. Like High Isle is a really good recent example of that. I think this kind of speaks to, I don't know if anyone's seen this yet, but ESO has been one of the top 10 Steam, on the top 10 Steam games for the past 400 weeks or something. For the past 6 to 7 years, ESO has been making a shit ton of money, at least through Steam, because a lot of people play ESO through Steam, and Crown transactions go through Steam as well, along with ESO Plus transactions. So that's a huge part of the reason why every time I make videos and talk about how much money ESO is making and how much money ZOS is making and stuff like that, I always point out, number one, it's been verified by multiple financial reports outside of ESO, outside of the sources that were given, that ESO is literally the number 1 moneymaker for ZeniMax Media, which is the parent company of Bethesda Studios and ZeniMax Online Studios. Has been for quite a while. Makes a lot more money than the previous 11 releases of Skyrim and Fallout put together. So there's a reason why they just put a lot of stuff into making money from Elder Scrolls, like crown crates and stuff like that. And I think part of the statement here is saying, hey, yeah, Elder Scrolls 6 isn't coming out anytime soon. You know what I mean? So I think this is kind of speaking to that, like, okay, well, Elder Scrolls 6 isn't coming out, and we're making the most money under our parent company, even after the post-Microsoft acquisition. So I think they realize that maybe, I don't know, like, I'm getting a sense of, it's not an MMO, like, they don't really want to embrace the traditional MMO stuff, which is fine in some aspects and maybe not fine in other aspects from this statement alone. Like, okay, well, we gotta remain more Elder Scrolls than ever before, because we just got confirmation from, Todd, hey, they're gonna work on Starfield, and that's it. And then Elder Scrolls 6 is coming out in like 10 years. So, anyway, the interview keeps going, and that's just my conjecture, though, at that statement. I think there's a lot that you can read into the statement for sure. He talks about how in 2016 you can just log in and play and not worry about what level you were or whatever. He's talking about like D1 Tamriel and faction stuff. He worked on Dark Age of Camelot and talks about like some general technical aspects. Obviously, infrastructure, IT, graphics, computers, tech specs is obviously like far beyond what Dark Age of Camelot was in 1999. Matt Fuhrer insists, it seems, that ZOS is one of the largest teams in the world. They're a very large studio with hundreds of talented developers, writers, artists, programmers, and producers. And this is split between 2 IPs, so right now they're working on ESO, but it seems they have a lot of effort, if you ever check the job listings and ever check like your social media, they have a lot of people and effort going into this other secret, supposedly MMO IP that some people think is like a Star Wars Mandalorian IP of MMO or something. So I don't know. And then I think he kind of starts talking about like, okay, we're prepping for the 2023 ESO content now that we're wrapping up High Isle. And just like he told the players on the forums, Matt Fuhrer, about the PC EU server hardware and also the server hardware for consoles, because PC already got their server hardware due to logistical issues. That's coming up, I think, post March 2023, right? So he talks about that a little bit here, and that hey, there's some things going on in terms of like upgrading data centers due to COVID-19 and the supply chain issues. And this is quite interesting. I've noticed a lot of this too, right? In terms of the voice acting for the Elder Scrolls Online, and I think the voice acting is definitely taken for granted by a lot of ESO players, especially if it's their first MMO. Because in most other MMOs I played, Korean, Chinese, even other Western MMOs, there really isn't too much voice acting, if any. And I guess the interviewer takes note that hey, John Cleese, Michael Gambon, Keith Beckinsale, Bill Nye, and of course, the latest Billy Boyd for the Tales of Tribute, Brackus, NPC, has made appearances in ESO. And Matt Fuhrer acknowledges this officially, saying that they do work with the Hollywood people to make sure that we're reaching out to the right people and doing it in the right way. So I think that's sort of a hint at maybe next year. They'll probably bring another celebrity, kind of how TwitchCon brought Megan Thee Stallion to, work with Master Chief at TwitchCon. Something like that. I think it's probably at this point expected that some sort of big name celebrity will probably make an appearance in some shape or form, probably in every yearly expansion, or maybe they'll do cameos or something like that, with certain side characters. I've been noticing they've been doing a lot of that too, especially with the recent voice actress. I forget her name. She's from Critical Role. I think she voiced Isabel, right? And I don't know. I guess that's cool. I'm a little disappointed with some lack of information with the interview, at least as far as 2023 goes. But we might see more information from the Game Awards this year, or maybe we'll get more clues later on in the year. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, Michael Zink interview, Loremaster of the Elder Scrolls Online. So again, as I mentioned earlier, there has been now a total of 3 Loremasters for the Elder Scrolls Online / Elder Scrolls. First one was Lauren Schwick. Second one was Lehman Total, and this is Michael Zink, and he was a senior writer, and he hasn't really, like compared to his predecessors, he hasn't really made too many public appearances. He hasn't really been out there as much as his two predecessors. Maybe he just wants some time to get settled. He doesn't really seem to have much of a social media presence compared to Schick or Tuttle did. I think they had him on for one live stream, or I think it was one live stream. But yeah, we'll see what this guy has to say about ESO. Anyway, the Elder Scrolls Online has increasingly become a part of Elder Scrolls lore, and this is the interviewer talking, and they just continue to talk about how they're going to talk to Michael Zink. He's following the footsteps of industry giants like Michael Kirkbride and Lauren Schick to discuss his recent entry into the role. Alright, and he says, "My name is Michael Zink, and I am a veteran writer in the games industry. I've been doing this for over a decade, which is pretty hard to believe most days. My first role was an associate designer on the DC Universe Online game back in 2009, and he's worked on Destiny, Destiny 2, Ghost of Tsushima, okay, and a couple of as yet unreleased independent projects. My time with ZOS and the Elder Scrolls Online is actually a tale in 2 parts. I was a senior writer on ESO during its initial launch, helping the team ship the game way back in 2014. After that, he was a writer for a few different zones like Auridon and Reaper's March, as well as the Mages Guild and Fighters Guild. Last year, as I was considering the next step in my career, I saw that ZOS was hiring and immediately put in an application. I've always been extremely proud of my work on ESO, and the people I've had the opportunity to work with at ZOS are top shelf. It's been amazing coming back to the game after all this time." So I'm kind of curious. I guess he worked on the base game stuff for sure in 2014. Curious if he had any. I guess he had a huge hand in the Mages Guild and Fighters Guild main quest lines with Shoggorath and the Mages Guild, and of course the Fighters Guild quest line. We'll see. What exactly is the job of Loremaster and what are the responsibilities? He says he's the voice in the room for narrative and lore. When we're planning new content releases, for example, when new artists design new products for the Crown Store, or when we work with outside partners in collaboration projects, I'm a resource available to the team to hip check the huge library of cultures, characters, and stories out there in Tamriel. In my day-to-day, it's a lot of talking and communicating, while also juggling a lot of variety of tasks to make sure I'm providing good information in a timely fashion. Whenever I have a chance to talk about games writing, I always try to make the point that it's just as much about communication and collaboration. Okay, and looks like the interviewer pointed out that, the Elder Scrolls series, franchises, a huge universe full of a lot of history, a lot of stories, lots of legends. And they asked how did they pick you? How did they pick a Loremaster in general? Like, is there an Elder Scrolls history test? And the Loremaster says, no test, thankfully. There's a lot out there. There's no way one person can keep track of it. I was a logical candidate for a role because of my time in the industry, my previous experience with the game, and because I'm kind of a giant nerd. And the 300 plus hours I put into Oblivion back then. And I guess he just talks about like his past, like how he always likes lore. And I'm kind of curious how he does it, you know what I mean? And then the interviewer says, given how deeply embedded some past lore masters have been in the community, and Lauren Schick have been so fundamental to ESO's development, is it intimidating being part of such a long legacy? Okay, and he talks about Bill Slavicek, the lead writer for ESO, and Bill actually showed up, I think, at least 2 or 3 times so far in the ESO live streams. He talks a lot about the writing he's done for not just ESO, but other places as well. I think he was also a writer for Star Wars at one point, right? So it's pretty cool that all these writers are coming together on ESO, or passing through ESO. It's nice. And he basically said, he's going to focus on dialogue writing and character development. And he, I guess, links us to his recent Loremasters archive, as in terms of his focus as a Loremaster. So yeah, I guess we'll see how he handles it. I know a lot of players, depending on the DLC, depending on the characters, sometimes have issues with how the Loremaster or the writing team for ESO, in terms of the quest lines and stuff, handle it, and a lot of people like it. But I'm kind of curious to see if this Loremaster can, I guess send out something like a bit more like distinct, at least for me. And let's see, pretty interesting piece here where he talks about like the different challenges for the Loremasters. Lawrence was challenged to ensure that when we went to Eastmarch, for example, or Zerodead, we were representing these locations in a way that spoke to the many players that explored them before. Okay, so our previous Loremaster, Lehman Tuttle, and I have different challenges. Lehman was in the role as we went to Fargrave and the Sisters Islands, weaving together compelling lore backgrounds for brand new places, never before explored places in Elder Scrolls game. Okay, so he's kind of speaking on the theme of the challenges his predecessors faced. Schick was challenged with, I guess, familiar places. Tuttle was challenged with unfamiliar places. So, again, I'm kind of curious how this guy will, shape his legacy as a Loremaster, right? What kind of work did you do on the most recent ESO release, High Isle? What's coming next for you in the role? Okay, so Michael says he was a senior writer for High Isle, working on the main story of the release, and he also wrote a bit on Coin Iren, and collaborated with Taylor Sayer on the companions for High Isle, and he was a writer for Isabel Valois, who was voiced by Laura Bailey. Yeah, there's the name. Right, okay, and yeah, that's pretty much it, and it's interesting. I kind of wish that they had put something like this out on the forums, but yeah, and hopefully we'll see more to do, at least for updates in regards to server hardware and other game direction issues with ESO from Matt Fuhrer in the near future. Probably expect a end of the year letter from the studio director. I think that's been a thing for the past 4 years. So yeah, that's it.